The story of the Great Flood is one of the oldest memories on Earth. A man, an ark, and a world submerged. For thousands of years, people have pictured a massive wooden vessel surviving the storm. The ancient text in Genesis chapter 6, verse 14, says the Creator commanded Noah to coat the wood inside and out with pitch. Most assume this was merely a practical detail, a layer of sticky black tar to waterproof the timber. But that assumption hides a breathtaking secret buried right in the ancient language. In the original Hebrew manuscript, the word for pitch isn't a simple word for ancient glue. The word is kopher, and kopher carries a staggering double meaning. It translates literally to ransom, or the price paid to redeem a life. It is the exact same root word used throughout the scriptures for the concept of atonement. The substance sealing the wood wasn't just tar. It was a divine code. The covering that shielded that family from the floodwaters of pure judgment is the identical word used for a sacrifice that covers human sin. Without kopher, the wood fractures. Without that covering, the waters burst through and they perish. The ark wasn't just sealed by nature, it was sealed by grace. Genesis chapter 6 verse 14 gives a bizarrely specific blueprint. Make an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in it, and cover it inside and out with pitch. The word for pitch here is kopher, and the verb used right beside it, the action of covering, is kafar. So the text literally reads, "You shall kafar the ark with kopher, you shall cover it with a covering." But let's strip away the English translation for a moment. If you asked an ancient Hebrew scholar what kafar and kopher meant, they wouldn't start talking about boat building. They would talk about blood. They would talk about the altar. Because kafar is the foundational root word for atonement in the entire biblical text. Have you ever heard of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement? Yom means day, and Kippur comes directly from kafar. It means to pacify, to cancel, to appease, or to cover over. When someone committed a trespass, their sin stood exposed before a holy creator. The law demanded justice. The wages were clear. The soul that sins shall die. But grace provided a substitute. An innocent animal was brought forward. Its life was given, and its blood was applied to the altar. That blood was the kafar. It covered the offense. It shielded the guilty party from the wrath of pure justice. Now take that back to the flood. The earth is filled with violence. The heart of man is desperately wicked. A storm of unmatched, devastating judgment is coming to wipe the slate clean. Water will annihilate everything. And in the middle of this doomed world, Noah is building a wooden box. Wood is porous. Wood splinters. Wood cracks under pressure. A wooden box alone cannot withstand the crushing weight of global judgment. God doesn't just tell Noah to build the boat. He commands him to apply the kopher, the atonement, the ransom. He commands him to smear this sealing agent on the inside and the outside. The ark must be entirely coated in a substance that bears the very name of redemption. What happens when the rain starts? When the fountains of the great deep burst open? The pressure against that wooden hull would be unimaginable. Billions of tons of water seeking a way in, seeking to drag that family down into the grave. But the water cannot touch the wood. It hits the kopher. The pitch takes the beating. The pitch holds back the flood. Think about the theological weight of this. The judgment of God is beating down from the sky and welling up from the earth. But inside the ark, Noah and his family are completely dry. They are safe not because they are flawless, but because they are entirely enveloped by the kopher. They are surrounded by the covering. It is the only thing standing between them and certain doom. If the kopher fails, they sink. If the ransom is not enough, they drown. But the covering holds tight. And the details go even deeper. Let's look at what the kopher is actually applied to. The text specifies gopher wood. Now, historians debate what exact tree gopher wood came from, but one thing is absolutely certain. For that wood to be used, the tree had to be cut down. It had to die. In ancient Hebrew culture, wood often represents human frailty or even a curse. Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 23 warns that anyone hung on a tree is cursed. So here is Noah building a massive vessel out of dead trees, preparing for a judgment that will destroy the entire world. But the wood alone isn't enough. Without the covering, the timber is completely vulnerable to the wrath of the waters. It would crack, it would splinter, the boat would sink. Fast forward a few thousand years. Another judgment is falling. Not a flood of water this time, but a flood of divine justice against human rebellion. And once again, we see wood. We see a heavy Roman cross made of dead trees, dragged up a dusty hill called Golgotha. But this time, the covering isn't sticky black tar. The covering is a person. Jesus of Nazareth is nailed to that wood. And as the sky turns black and the earth violently shakes, the full weight of judgment pours down. He takes the flood of wrath. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 24 says he himself bore our sins in his body on the tree. He became the Kopher. He became the ransom, the price paid to redeem a doomed life. Think about the striking parallel here. The pitch covered the ark inside and out, taking the severe beating of the storm so those resting inside could live. On the cross, the Messiah took the brutal impact of pure justice. He was crushed so we could be spared. The storm hit him, and it exhausted itself completely on him. When you read the New Testament, Mark chapter 10 verse 45 says, "The Son of Man came to give his life as a ransom for many." That word ransom in the Greek is lutron. It carries the exact same meaning as the ancient Hebrew kopher, the price to set a captive free. So when Noah was smearing that thick black resin on the beams of the ark, he wasn't just waterproofing a boat. He was painting a prophetic picture. He was preparing a physical shelter that pointed directly to a staggering spiritual reality. The wood represents the cursed cross. The pitch represents the blood of the ultimate sacrifice. And just like Noah's family, the only way to survive the coming storm is to be completely sealed inside that covering. Let's look closer at exactly how the Creator told Noah to apply this Kopher. Genesis chapter 6 verse 14 says to cover it inside and out with pitch. Why both sides? A modern boat builder might tell you it's just for double waterproofing. But listen to the spiritual code hidden in the language. If Kopher means atonement, then being covered inside and out changes everything about how we understand divine forgiveness. The outside covering protects from the external judgment. The crushing floodwaters of absolute wrath beat violently against the hull, but the outside Kopher takes the hit. The storm cannot penetrate the wood because the ransom blocks it. But what about the inside? Why in the world would you smear the living quarters with black tar? Think about the brutal reality of surviving in that ark. Noah and his family were rescued, sure, but they were still completely human. They still carried a fallen, broken nature. For over a year, they were trapped in a dark, cramped space with thousands of wild animals. Imagine the smell. Imagine the stress. There was undoubtedly fear. There was frustration, maybe even bitter arguments. Sin didn't magically vanish just because they stepped onto a boat. If the blazing holiness of the Creator looked inside that wooden box, what would he see? He wouldn't see perfect, flawless people. He would see the Kopher. He would see the ransom. The inside covering shielded Noah from the internal reality of his own imperfection. The atonement covers you from the wrath outside and the sin inside. It is a complete, unbreakable seal. And Genesis chapter 7 verse 16 adds a mind-bending detail to this picture. It says Noah and his family went in, and the Lord shut him in. Noah didn't close the heavy wooden door himself. He couldn't. God sealed it. The ransom was applied. The family was gathered inside, and the Creator himself locked it down. Thousands of years later, the Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 30, "Do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption." Listen to that word, sealed. It is the exact same concept happening in Genesis. When you step into the ultimate ark, when you put your trust in the final sacrifice, you aren't just handed a flimsy life jacket and told to swim. You are locked in. You are sealed securely by the Spirit of God. The waters of judgment will inevitably rise again on this earth. But if you are resting in Him, the Kopher covers you completely. The devastating storm hits the ransom, not you. And the door is shut by the hand of God Himself. No one can throw you overboard. No one can break that seal. You are entirely, eternally secure. Think about the millions of people who were left outside that wooden door. Genesis tells us there were giants in the earth in those days, mighty men of old, men of renown. These were warriors. These were kings and empire builders. They had fortresses. They had high ground. They had immense human strength. But when the fountains of the great deep violently shattered, all that human glory was instantly erased. A sword cannot fight a flood. A fortress cannot stop a rising ocean. Human effort is entirely useless against divine judgment. The water consumed them all. Imagine the sheer ridicule Noah must have faced. For decades, he was dragging heavy timber. He was boiling down this thick black pitch. He was smearing the Kopher over every single plank of Gopher wood. The ancient world undoubtedly mocked him relentlessly. Why are you building a massive boat on dry land? Why are you so obsessed with this sticky covering? They laughed, until the very first drop of rain hit the dirt. Then the screaming started. When the floodwaters rapidly rose, every single person desperately hammering on the outside of that wooden hull suddenly realized the terrifying truth. The very thing they mocked was the only thing that could save them. The only difference between the mighty men who drowned and the 8 people who lived was the Kopher. Noah didn't survive because he was a better swimmer. He didn't survive because his carpentry skills were flawless. A wooden box battered by a global cataclysm should have shattered into a million pieces. He survived solely because of the ransom. The covering took the wrath so the family wouldn't have to. And this isn't just an ancient history lesson. It is a direct, urgent warning for right now. 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 6 tells us, "The world that then existed was deluged with water and perished." But then verse 7 drops a terrifying reality. It says, "The present heavens and earth are being kept until the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly." A final storm is coming. Not water this time. The text says it will be fire. And just like in the days of Noah, human strength will mean absolutely nothing. Your money can't buy a ticket out. Your good deeds can't build a strong enough boat. If you stand naked in that storm, you will be burned. But the Creator has provided a new ark. He has provided a final Kopher. The life, death, and resurrection of Jesus is the ultimate covering. If you are sealed inside him, the judgment passes completely over you. The cross absorbed the fatal blow so you could walk out into a brand new world. Did you know there are only 2 objects in the entire Old Testament called an ark? Noah's massive boat and the Ark of the Covenant. Both are wooden boxes. Both are designed to preserve life. And both share the exact same linguistic DNA through this ancient word, Kopher. Let me show you how deep this goes. In Exodus chapter 25, the Creator commands Moses to build a sacred chest out of acacia wood. Inside this box, Moses places the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments. That law is absolutely flawless. It represents the perfect standard of divine justice. And frankly, it condemns every single human being because we have all broken it. If God looks down into that wooden box, his absolute justice demands that the lawbreakers pay the ultimate price. Death is the only outcome. But then God gives Moses another bizarrely specific instruction. He tells him to craft a solid gold lid to cover the wooden box. In English, we call it the mercy seat. But if you read the original Hebrew scroll, the word for that golden lid is kaporet. Kaporet comes directly from Kopher. It literally translates to the place of atonement, or the covering. Every single year on Yom Kippur, the high priest would step into the pitch-black room of the Holy of Holies. He would be trembling. If he entered without a substitute, he would drop dead on the spot. He carried the blood of a perfect innocent lamb, and he sprinkled that blood directly onto the kaporet. He applied the covering. God promised that when he looked down at the unbroken law, he wouldn't see the rebellion of the people. He would see the blood on the covering. He would see the ransom. The wrath was satisfied. Do you see the staggering consistency of this ancient text? In Genesis, the massive wooden boat is coated in Kopher to shield a family from the catastrophic flood of judgment. In Exodus, the wooden chest of the law is shielded by the kaporet to protect an entire nation from the deadly curse of their own sin. The sticky black pitch in the ancient world and the crimson blood on the golden lid are shouting the exact same truth. Without the covering, the wood is exposed. Without the ransom, the people are instantly destroyed. This is not a coincidence. This is a divine blueprint. It proves that from the very first pages of history, there has only ever been one way to survive the blazing holiness of God. You can't just build a good life and hope it floats. You must be covered. Your sin must be answered for by a substitute. Think about the immense timeline of this ancient construction project. Genesis chapter 6, verse 3 tells us the Creator established a terrifying countdown. His spirit would not strive with man forever. He gave them exactly 120 years. For over a century, that massive wooden skeleton sat on completely dry land. We are talking about a vessel 300 cubits long. It was a towering, inescapable monument to impending doom. And for over a century, Noah was relentlessly applying the Kopher. The apostle Peter actually calls Noah a preacher of righteousness in 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 5. So I want you to really imagine the scene. Noah didn't just quietly build a boat in secret. Every single time he took a heavy brush and slapped a thick layer of that black pitch onto the gopher wood, it was a sermon. The harsh, bitter smell of the boiling tar was a warning to the entire surrounding civilization. Every strike of the hammer, every bucket of pitch, was declaring a very clear message. The ransom is being prepared, the covering is ready, the judgment is imminent, and for 120 years the heavy door of that massive ark stood wide open. The coffer was smeared all around that gigantic entrance. Any person from that ancient world, any violent warlord, any skeptical merchant, any common laborer could have walked right up that wooden ramp. They could have touched the ransom with their own hands. They could have stepped inside those pitch-covered walls and claimed the exact same covering that Noah did. The grace of the Creator was incredibly, agonizingly patient. He waited. He gave a violently wicked generation decades to turn away from their evil and step into the only true refuge on planet Earth. But no one came. Not a single soul outside of those 8 family members believed the warning. They looked at the Kopher and thought it was just a bizarre obsession of a crazy old man. They chose to trust their own physical strength on solid ground rather than a sticky, pitch-covered wooden box. They chose death. Listen to the profound, terrifying parallel for every single one of us right now. The ultimate Kopher, the blood of the ultimate substitute, has already been entirely applied to the cross. The ransom price is paid in full. And for 2,000 years, the door to that spiritual ark has been sitting wide open. The message has been echoing across the entire globe, pleading with humanity to step inside before the final sky breaks open. But just like in the ancient world, people just walk right past the open door. They mock the ancient concept of a bloody substitute. They confidently trust their own basic human goodness. They trust their bank accounts. They look at the historical cross of Jesus and call it absolute foolishness. Listen to me. Don't make the same fatal mistake those ancient people made. The dark clouds didn't hold off forever in Genesis. At an exact, divinely appointed hour, the animals walked in, Noah walked in, and God himself sealed that massive door tightly shut. And the devastating reality is this: once that door closes, it never opens again. The final storm is coming. It is an absolute guarantee. The only question that actually matters is this: are you standing on the outside trusting your own strength, or are you resting on the inside, completely sealed by the Kopher? The storm eventually ran out of water. The wrath was completely exhausted, and the massive wooden ark, battered but perfectly sealed by the Kopher, finally hit solid rock. Genesis chapter 8 verse 4 gives us a wildly specific timestamp for this monumental event. It says the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. Why would the ancient text give us the exact month and the exact day? Because the Creator was planting a prophetic time bomb right in the manuscript. Centuries later, during the Exodus out of Egypt, God commands the Israelites to rearrange their entire calendar. The 7th month of the ancient calendar is renamed Nisan, and it becomes the very first month of their religious year. Now track the timeline closely. God commands them to kill the Passover lamb on the 14th day of that month. Fast forward to the New Testament. Jesus of Nazareth, the ultimate sacrificial lamb, is crucified on exactly that day. He dies on the 14th of Nisan. He is placed in a cold stone tomb. 1 day passes, 2 days pass. Then comes the 3rd day, Sunday morning, the day he shatters the power of death and walks out of the grave alive. Do the math. 3 days after the 14th is the 17th of Nisan. The exact same day, the ark rested on solid ground. This will absolutely blow your mind. The very day the wooden ark safely deposited the survivors of the flood onto a brand new washed earth is the identical day of the year that Jesus Christ resurrected from the dead to inaugurate the new creation. The Kopher didn't just keep Noah from drowning, it carried him entirely through the raging wrath and delivered him into a brand new world. And that is exactly what the ultimate ransom does for you. The cross doesn't just cancel your eternal death sentence. The resurrection drags you right out of the graveyard and promises you an eternal future. When you are covered by the blood of the Messiah, the storm completely passes, the heavy wooden door swings wide open, and you inherit a brand new heaven and a brand new earth. The ransom is perfectly complete. The story of the ark isn't just ancient history. It's a lifeline thrown directly to you today. If this revelation of the Kopher Code shook how you view the ancient scriptures, don't just keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who thinks the Bible is just a collection of old fairy tales. Show them the absolute brilliance of the divine blueprint. And if you want to keep digging into the deep prophetic codes hidden in these ancient texts, subscribe to the channel right now. We're just scratching the surface. Before you leave, I want to hear from you. Add a comment and tell me which part of the Kopher connection hit you the hardest. Was it the inside and outside seal, or the exact date of the resurrection? Let's talk about it. The storm is coming. Make sure you are sealed inside the ultimate ransom.